Okay, we should be live. Everyone, welcome back to the channel. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to everyone who watched, shared, supported, gave feedback on the last case study that we posted. We did get some pretty decent numbers that I wasn't expecting on that case study, to be fair. I think we needed 150 views on that, I said, in order to unlock this next set of videos. And I think at the point of recording right now, we're sitting at around 220, 225 on that. So if you haven't watched that already, go back and give that a watch. Really, really good case study. A lot of information to be absorbed. And with this, mini lecture on schematics, there's just a couple of things I want to preface this video with. First and foremost, right? This is one page out of a book, a wealth of knowledge. Okay, this is one page. So, this is not the whole story. Even if I explain schematics to you today in as much detail as I can, it is not going to be the whole story, and it's not going to be enough for it to be an entire strategy. Also, there's a lot of assumptions I'm going to have to make in terms of how much you guys already know. There's going to be, if it's anything like the first case study, there's hundreds of people watching this, and so as a result, there's no real base level. There's no real, not everyone is on the same page or the same wavelength in terms of what they know, how much they know. And so I'm going to have to be somewhat generic in these videos, okay? We really get specific and we start tackling the intricacies of these concepts as a cohort, as a group in the mentorship. But for now in these YouTube videos, I'm going to have to go off of quite a few assumptions. And not only that, I'm going to have to pick a cutoff point where I have to stop explaining further because, as I said, this whole book, this whole wealth of knowledge, everything kind of integrates into each other. And so there's no clean point for me to stop speaking about schematics and not start speaking about something like liquidity in a bit more depth, or structure in a bit more depth, or narrative in a bit more depth, which is the most important thing by far. And so bear that in mind. But definitely you should still be getting some kind of value out of this. So let's just begin, and let's first get some key terms out of the way. Let's actually start defining what schematic actually means to start with. A schematic, okay, is synonymous with the word process. Okay, so a schematic is nothing but a process that price undergoes. So if I was to elaborate that, a schematic is a process that price undergoes in which price engineers and purges liquidity in order to send price in the desired direction. Okay. Also, I can imagine this being quite overwhelming for people who are listening to all of this for the first time. There's going to be a lot of words being said and so on and so forth. I would say this video, just watch it once. And then when you watch it back for a second, third, fourth time, that's when you can pause and start absorbing, maybe even making some notes and whatnot. But for the first time, just watch it through, let everything kind of settle, and then handle it once it's all landed. Cool. So a schematic is a process in which price engineers and purges liquidity in order to send it into the desired direction. This desired direction, guys, if we think about it, price only has two directions. We can either go up or we can go down. Okay, so there are certain schematics that send price up, and then there are certain schematics that send price down. Of course, you can imagine the schematics that are used, or the processes, right, that are used to send price up are the ones that we use to buy price. And the schematics or processes that are used to send price down are the ones that we use to sell price. Okay, so you can understand the application of these schematics is to actually use them in order to trade in the desired direction. Of course, because the market is fractal, your schematics on a higher time frame, on a macro scale, can do nothing but inform your narrative on an intraday level. But then the schematics on, for example, a scalp level or lower levels can actually be your entry models themselves. Okay, cool. So schematics or processes that send price higher, the schematics that we use to buy price, are forms of accumulations. The first one is just a regular accumulation. Okay, and the second one is called a reaccumulation. The schematics that are used to send price lower, the schematics that we use, or the processes that we use to sell price, are forms of distributions. First one is just a regular distribution. The second one is called a redistribution. You can already see parallels on both sides. Okay, so accumulations used to send price higher, they use to buy price. Distributions used to send price lower, used to sell price. So what's the actual difference then on either side? What's the difference, for example, between an accumulation and a reaccumulation? Now, a regular accumulation is a reversal pattern, okay? It is bearish price turning bullish. Okay, so it takes place at the lows. It takes place within the box that you can see there. A reaccumulation, for example, is a continuation on the other hand. Okay, it is bullish price remaining bullish. So it takes place there within that box, okay? An existing uptrend resulting in further uptrend. Of course, we can translate the same thing over to the other side. A distribution is also a reversal, okay? It is this time bullish price turning bearish, okay? So distributions takes place at the highs, okay? It's bullish turning bearish. Redistribution, of course, you can fill in the blanks here, is a continuation. And it is bearish price remaining bearish. Now, understand this, guys. These four schematics, right? An accumulation, a distribution, a reaccumulation, and a redistribution. These are the only four processes that exist. These are the only four schematics that exist. AKA, these are the only four things that price is going to be doing at any given moment in time. Okay? And these four processes are in service to only two directions. We can either go down or we can go up. We can either buy price or we can sell it. Those are the only two options, right? So as a result, you can understand when you are building a trade idea, when you are building a narrative, okay, by process of elimination, you can quite simply, it's not easy because it does take a lot of practice, it does take a lot of experience as well, but definitely pretty simply, you can narrow down which schematics are going to take place at any given moment in time, or which schematics are most likely to take place, I should say. Of course, you know, we don't know which schematic it's going to be until after the fact. That's the whole point of trading Forex, right? You're predicting price. You're making an assumption that price is most likely to go in X direction. Cool. Let's talk a little bit more about where these schematics actually take place, okay? So, let's talk about an accumulation. Let's talk about an accumulation in isolation for a second. So we already know, for example, reversal, bearish, turning bullish. Okay, so if we draw out, for example, just a little crude depiction of price there, you can see how we have bearish price turning bullish. Okay, so this whole diagram is actually a diagram of a lengthy accumulation process taking place. We've got bearish turning bullish, okay? But even within this, okay, because of course there's no scale here, this could, for example, be on the daily time frame. You can then zoom in and understand that in all these areas, okay, at the lows where we have bearish turning bullish, and so on and so forth, here and here, those are all areas of local accumulation. Local, of course, now is just another word or a way of imagining or understanding fractal nature of price and zooming in. Okay, so that's a local accumulation within an overall macro accumulation, for example. Okay, now using this same thing, we can understand that distributions would be taking place at these highs. Okay, where we have local bullish price turning bearish, local bullish price turning bearish at these highs, so on and so forth. Okay, we have distributions within, for example, an overall accumulation, okay, or an overall schematic, macro schematic. And of course, to be fair, as an extension, we can keep going. We can imagine in these areas now, this being a reaccumulation, right? I'm going to make this a different color. Okay, a reaccumulation, bullish, remaining bullish, okay? Here, in this whole leg, bullish, remaining bullish, so on and so forth, as you guys can imagine, bullish, remaining bullish. And of course, the redistributions would take place in areas like this, where we have bearish price, remaining bearish. Bearish price after the initial distribution, for example, remaining further bearish. Okay, so this slide, I guess we could say, delineates pretty well where the schematics take place. So the black boxes are your reversal schematics, and your blue boxes are your continuation schematics. Okay, so once again, just key terms, not even key terms at this point, but just basic things that ultimately, especially students of the winner circle would know this. This is information that you just, at the end of the day, know off the top of your head. You should know this like at the back of your hand, right? This slide and this slide is just second nature, just common knowledge at this point. Okay, cool. So let's now move on to the, I guess, slowly moving on to the mechanisms of the actual schematic. How does a schematic actually evolve? How does a schematic come about? How does it engineer liquidity? How does it purge liquidity? And then how does it ultimately move into the desired direction? Okay. Now, if we talk about, once again, we will start with accumulations, including the reac. Okay, so this is a regular accumulation and a reaccumulation. All the schematics, for example, that send price higher, that are used to buy price. Okay, so if we can understand, right, that the desired direction of any form of accumulation is to send price higher, we can also then, of course, understand, as we've said before, that price works in the manner of a slingshot, right? Price works, one of those cars, I think I said it either in this video or one that I tried to record before, but one of those cars that used to take, pull back, and then some kind of spring mechanism would propel the car forward. Price needs to go in X direction. Price needs to purge, in X direction in order to go in Y direction. Okay, so if we can understand that accumulations send price higher, we know that the purges of liquidity are going to be below the lows. So during accumulation schematics, liquidity exists below old lows. This is very, very important to understand. This is very, very important to understand, and you'll see why. First of all, of course, naturally, the concept of liquidity is central to schematics. Okay, if we go back to the very definition of a schematic, it's a process through which price engineers and purges liquidity in order to go in a desired direction. So understanding how liquidity works is very, very important. So just to touch on that, in an accumulation, the liquidity is going to exist below old lows. Okay, so for example, if we have a situation like this, okay, let's say we are in an area of, let's think about this. Yeah, let's say we are in an area, right? Let's talk about a reaccumulation. Okay, let's say we are in an area where we already have bullish price, okay, and we are looking to attain even higher prices. Let's say we have a target way up here in form of a previous week high, previous day high, Asia high, whatnot. And let me actually draw this out a little bit better. Okay, so we understand, right, in an area, in an area of potential reaccumulation, the liquidity exists below old lows. In this case, of course, we can see two old lows here. Now, if price, okay, or when price breaks below these lows, you are not to mistake that in this area as signs of bearish intent. Okay, a lot of people would confuse this as a bearish break of structure, so on and so forth. But since we are in an area of a reaccumulation, since our macro target is this previous week high that I've drawn on here, okay, and since we are in an area where a reaccumulation is most likely, okay, we know liquidity exists below old lows, and so by extension, this is not a bearish break of structure. This can be classed as a liquidity grab. Okay, now this is a question a lot of people have. How do you delineate what's a liquidity grab? How do you delineate what's a break of structure? This is getting closer and closer to your answer, okay? Your overall narrative, okay, and then by extension, which schematic is most likely, is going to dictate which side of the market the liquidity grab is going to be at. Okay, so let's actually slow that down and talk about that in a bit more detail. Cool. So same example, if we have a higher target here in the form of a previous week high, previous day high, whatever really, right? If we have a higher target, we know, okay, we know that we do not want to be selling below that high. Okay, as I said, your strongest, how do I say this? Your strongest trade ideas with the best foundations, right? And with the most weight to them are always going to come after you question what it is that you do not want to do. Your trade idea should never ever be born from what it is that you want to be doing. Okay, that's the very, very important thing to understand. Your trade idea always comes by process of elimination of what it is that you definitely do not want to do, because of course, preserving your capital is Forex 101. You can't make profit if you don't preserve your capital. This is how you preserve your capital, understanding what it is that you do not want to be doing. Okay, so here, for example, we can understand that we do not want to we don't want sells. Okay, we do not want to sell. Now, if that is the case, we can understand that in that particular scenario, then distributions or redistributions are completely out of the question. Okay, distributions are completely out of the question. And so as a result, we are going to be playing a buy schematic, either an accumulation or a reaccumulation. And now, considering where both of those takes place and considering where we are at this point in time, we can understand, because we are already in an existing uptrend and we are looking for further uptrend, this area, okay, point X, current price, is most likely to be an area of reaccumulation. Of course, price could distribute and continue lower. Price could do that, okay? However, because we understand analytically, we as traders do not want to sell below the previous day high. Even if a distribution plays, it's not something that we are looking to engage in. I hope you guys are all following with this. This is where I would love to ask you guys if it's making sense or if I should slow down, but I'll just carry on. So you can understand that this area, right, is your highest probability schematic in this case is going to be a reaccumulation. Okay. Let's sort some of this out. Perfect. So now, price, if we are in a reaccumulation, we know price is intending to go higher, so it's going to have to engineer and purge liquidity below some lows in order to do that. So in this case, first, of course, you're going to have to let price actually engineer some liquidity. It could be anything. It could be just a choppy consolidation. It could be an Asian range where it gives you an Asia low. It could be anything. But once we have liquidity engineered, in this case, let's say we've got a trend line, for example, okay? Once we have that liquidity engineered, we know where the liquidity is. When we purge that, okay, I think I've said this already. When we purge that, we know that that is no longer a breakout structure. That's a liquidity grab. And therefore, below these lows now, locally speaking, which schematic is likely to take place below these lows? Which schematic is going to turn bearish into bullish at this low? Let's look at the table. Bearish to bullish at the low. That's an accumulation. So you can understand that within this overall reaccumulation, you're going to have a local accumulation over here. Is that making sense to everyone? I hope it is. I hope it is. Let's move on. Let's move on. Cool. So let's say, for example, you are in an area now of a redistribution, okay? Let's just flip it upside down. Let's say you're targeting this low, price is in this area. And now I'm going to draw some candles on so you can actually see what this looks like. Let's say on the 1 hour time frame, okay? You have a bearish candle like this. And another bearish candle like so, okay? In this area, you can understand, right? If we now see a bullish candle close in this manner, what has this bullish candle achieved? This bullish candle has wiped out the liquidity above these old highs. On a lower time frame, these three candles will look something like this. Okay, as a result, you can now understand that on this local level, okay, you are now above old highs, okay, in an area where you've purged previous liquidity. So price has engineered liquidity. Price has now purged the liquidity above the highs in an area of overall redistribution. And now, locally speaking, we can look for a schematic which turns bullish price into bearish price. Going back to the table, that will allow you to understand that this is a local area of distribution. So you can use this schematic to sell price. Okay, this is how you can pick your trades. This is how you can pick your higher probability areas. Okay, I hope everyone's following that. Of course, there's so much more I could say about how to actually use the schematics in order to enter trades. I think we could leave that for a later date. But this, I guess we can call an introduction to schematics. I think that's a good idea, guys. I'm just thinking about if there's anything else specifically that I want to mention. As you guys can tell, there's no plan I have. I press record and I spit from the toe, almost like like I'm in a booth or something. So yeah, I'm just quickly trying to think if there's anything else that I need to mention when it comes to this so far. I think as far as introductions go, or as far as the first video goes, this should be good enough. This should be good enough. If you go back and watch this, guys, there should definitely be some food for thought. There should definitely be a bunch of questions coming as well. But I hope, sorry, that it invokes some kind of curiosity amongst you guys. Do get in touch with me. Let's have some discussions. Let's have some conversations about this. Ask me your questions and I will be more than happy to answer. So yeah, I think I'm happy with that. As an introduction to schematics, we will leave that there. You can expect more videos in the future diving more in depth. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Take care, trade safe, and I will see you all soon.